Here we go, guys. Welcome back to the Escape 95 show and welcome to another interview here on. We are on different places. We are on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. We are all over the place. But feel free to let us know where you're watching from. Put in the comments your city or your country. And remember, this is an interactive conversation. So any questions you have for the guest of today, put the questions in the comments and I will forward them to our guest. Anyway, today we're going to talk about podcasts. If you want to start a podcast or if you want to get more exposure with yours and you want to monetize it and you want to grow it, this is the right episode that you should watch. I invited an expert. Obviously, every time that I have a conversation with someone, I always try to find the best person for the topic that we're tackling. And today I have here with me the LinkedIn podcast guy. Really difficult for me to say this. But anyway, he's going to talk about how to launch and grow a podcast using LinkedIn as well. So in case you want to know a little more about using LinkedIn to grow it, you're going to learn it. Well, I'm going to invite to the stage Tomas Loucky. Tomas, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alessandro. I really appreciate it. And thank you for beautiful introduction. I'm really looking forward to this.
I'm looking forward to this as well. I never had an episode about podcasts before, to be honest. And I was looking forward to this interview because, in my case, I started my entire business with YouTube. So I moved more to the visual way of generating traffic and getting exposure. But I wanted to have a conversation about podcasts because many people, they prefer to try a different approach and start a podcast. And there is no way who is better than the other. It's just about what you're more familiar and comfortable with. So I wanted to have a conversation with you to basically know everything about it. I want to start from a simple thing. Let's start from the basics. How do you start with a podcast? Let's assume that someone here watching, they want to start their own podcast. What do you start from? What do you do at the beginning?
This is a good question. And I would say that sometimes I think that people overthink it. And I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty sure that I was the same when I was starting out. But I think you can literally start even with zero or very limited budget. Of course, if you've got any resources, your budget is higher, you got more options. But to start a podcast, you really need just a mic and some kind of software. I always use example of when I was starting out, which now it's been quite a while. But because I didn't really know how, I was also overthinking everything because, of course, I wanted to start as well as possible. And I didn't really have resources. And in the beginning, it makes sense that you don't really want to pay for the most expensive mic or the software if you don't know. So literally, I just started out with, I think it was actually headphones because some headphones have a good mic. And as a software, I was recording on the Zoom because I was familiar with Zoom. You can get it for free, although there was a little obstacle that I had to record for 30 minutes, then stop the recording and continue another 30 minutes, which sometimes was a bit funny and awkward at the same time when I was telling the guest in the middle, oh, we will rejoin in after 30 minutes because it's for free. And then I just found some kind of software to edit the recording. I remember back then, I think I used Audacity because it was for free. When I think about it these days and compared to what kind of tools you got these days, it was okay, but let's be honest, it was quite terrible. So just to come back to the example, I think back then I didn't spend any money on it. And like literally all I needed was, as I said, mic, some kind of software, and just need to be willing to put yourself out there and find some people to talk to. And I think that sometimes the biggest hurdle for the people to start is probably the fear, because you need to put your face out there, you need to speak on the camera, and in the beginning, of course, it might be scary or uncomfortable. But coming back to what you need to start a podcast, I would say don't overthink it, just look for some basics. And especially these days, you've got so many tools, and I'm pretty sure that everyone can afford to pay a few, I don't know, a few dollars or a few pounds per month for some kind of software, and there are so many options. So then just do a bit of research, get some courage, get some people to speak to, and yeah, start recording. Don't overthink it.
Well, since you mentioned tools that you can get for without spending too much, without investing too much of your money, what do you recommend right now to use? Because you started with City, that was free. You started with something that you could use without investing anything, as many people do. We try to use what
Mhm.
we have at the moment. What would you recommend right now?
Yeah. So nothing negative against Audacity. Back then it was amazing, but I think these days, because you've got AI and so many options, I would go probably for something different. And also before I was recording with Zoom because it was for free, and I think it was after COVID, so everyone was familiar with the Zoom, so I just found it easier. But these days there are so many tools, and of course you've got AI, so one tool is better than the other. But I remember back then I was doing some research, and for some reason I chose Riverside, and since then I stuck with the Riverside. And although I'm not part of them and I don't get any commission for that, that's the tool that I stuck with because I think they keep improving all the time, adding features, amazing customer support. So if I could recommend one, I would go for Riverside because I think it's amazing and I'm pretty sure it's going to only grow. But besides that, you've got others such as StreamYard, and I don't know what else now. But what such a tool does, it's basically everything in one place so that you can record, edit, repurpose for any shorts. I'm pretty sure you can even connect your account so that it's easier to share to the platforms and do really everything. So then, if you've got a budget, you can buy other tools such as, I don't know, do the transcription, do the AI cutting of the shorts, so it's easier and it's faster and this and that. But I would say pick maybe one tool in the beginning so that it doesn't become overwhelming, and over time see what you need, and then you can explore other tools. Riverside was just my recommendation, but if you search for any alternatives, there are many more. And yeah, just give it a try. If you don't like it, you can try a different one, but that will be my recommendation.
Yeah, and as you said, sometimes we tend to overthink and we want to start with
Yeah.
the best environment possible. So we think that before starting, we need to have the best tools and the best platforms or the anything that we need in order to create a perfect product. But
Yeah,
you don't
and
have to start perfect.
to be honest, I feel like that was me in the beginning because it's like, what tool am I going to use? How am I going to structure my podcast? How am I going to do intro? But really, in the end, it's just about starting, improving along the way. I know that it sounds kind of like a cliche, but it's really true. Just take that first step, learn along the way, and also I think there isn't really like a set structure how you have to do it. Just find what works for you. And I always try to say, do what you enjoy so that you stay consistent, and just make sure that you are able to keep showing up. Because if it's something that you don't enjoy, probably audience is not going to enjoy it either, and you will not be consistent. So just do what you enjoy, be willing to experiment, and make sure that you are able to stick with that.
I totally agree with that. And we tend to compare ourselves with people being on podcasts for 5, 10 years. So we think we
Yeah.
have to do the same exact thing with an introduction, with music, with I don't know, with the best microphone in the that you can afford to buy. But we don't have to start like that. We have to compare ourselves. First of all, we have to compare ourselves with ourself, our previous self.
that
But
that is
then
true.
we have to understand that even people that are really popular right now and really profitable with their show, they didn't start like they are right now. They started with nothing and they started just with what they had, and then they improved
Mhm.
the product that they have over time. So this is the same exact way you have to go. I absolutely agree with that. And before I forget about this, do you think it's really important to have a good microphone? Like, would you recommend to invest if I have to invest on something, like if I really want to invest on something, do you think that a microphone is the best option or something else?
I think probably it actually might be microphone because let's be honest, if you listen to the podcast and the audio is shit, even if there is a value and you enjoy it, if the audio is bad, I think it just makes the whole experience worse. But at the same time, I would say that the mics are not really expensive. Of course, if you go for something top, it's going to be expensive, but you've got loads of options there for a great price. And I would even say that these days, like any headphones have like pretty decent microphones. So I would say I think that it's. I'm honestly, I'm quite surprised when I find a podcast with shitty audio because I feel like that even if you've got headphones for your mobile phone and it has a mic, it usually is a good quality. But yeah, don't underestimate it because I think it can ruin the whole experience if the mic is bad and the people can listen that it's bad.
Yeah, I agree with that. In my case, for YouTube, is more a visual thing, but still, I would recommend to buy a good microphone because if they can't hear you properly, you're gonna miss
Mhm.
everything, right? I don't need to
And I
have the
think
best lights right now, but the microphone is absolutely important.
Yeah, and I think even with YouTube, for example, I often do some kind of work, and in the background, I listen to YouTube. I don't watch what's happening, but I listen to it. So I think that kind of proves the importance of the good audio because people may not be watching, but they are still listening to it. So you never know. I just wouldn't underestimate it.
Absolutely, agree with that. Okay, so since we talked already about tools, and if any one of the people watching here, if you want to ask something about tools or anything related to that, just drop your questions in the comments. Talking always about this person who wants to start a podcast right now. How do you find your niche, and what kind of podcast do you create? How can you find the right type of podcast to create? Because in your case, for example, you interview experts or you invite guests to your show. There are other podcasts that are more about the host talking by himself and teaching and guiding. How do you find the right niche, and how do you find the right type of podcast to do
Mhm.
to create?
I think that's a good question because when I was starting out, I used to do, or my focus was creative industries. So I spoke with people from whether it was film, music, I don't know, drawing, art, or something similar. But over time, because I started building my brand on LinkedIn, I somehow got interested in LinkedIn, speaking with people. And I remember when I had like a switch or some kind of discovery that I want to speak with people from LinkedIn because I thought there was a lot of value, amazing people. It was a platform that I enjoyed. And when I made this decision, that's also when I made myself self-proclaimed LinkedIn's podcast guy. I feel like that was like a moment that made kind of everything easier because since then you know you just know what's your focus, like what people you're going to talk to, who's your audience, what are some topics. So I think it's really important to find what's your niche going to be because also what's worth mentioning is that there are already a lot of podcasts. Let's be honest, it's quite saturated market. But then the question is how many podcasts make it past, I don't know how many, 6, 10, 20 episodes. So pick what topic or what's your niche going to be because I think it's important for both to position yourself in the eyes of your audience and at the same time to make it easier for yourself because as I said, I think it makes everything easier. And when it comes to the structure, again, it's something that I used to overthink as well. But if you look what podcasts there are, there's literally, I would say, any type of podcast that you can think of, whether it's, I don't know, 20 minutes one, even, look at Joe Rogan, 3 hour episodes or even longer, whether it's one person, two, three, four, even more. Sometimes it's just one person talking. So I would come back to what I mentioned before is make sure that it's something that you enjoy, that you are able to stay consistent with. And also because of the number of podcasts that already exist, make sure that your podcast is will stand out in a certain way. Because let's be honest, if there are many podcasts already, it might be quite hard to get to the audience. Of course, it's different if you've already got a strong online persona, but if you are just starting out, there needs to be something that makes you stand out, that audience listens to you. So if you are doing the podcast in the topic, like for example, personal development, I think that's the topic that many people would do podcast about. I'm not going to lie, I would probably enjoy it as well. But at the same time, there are many already and even established ones. So maybe you might niche down a bit more, or you might use a different angle, such as, I don't know, of course you can speak only by yourself without a guest. If you've got enough info to share, you can speak with someone else, or just find some kind of angle that makes you to stand out, so that people choose you over the competition. Or if there is specific niche that that there are not many podcasts yet, that might be something for you. So just to somehow sum it up, I would say when it comes to the structure, don't limit yourself, but make sure that audience will have a reason to listen to you. And what was the with the focus, I think it's important to find the niche. But at the same time, if you feel like you don't know where, or you want to go broad, I would say don't see it as an obstacle. You can just start and figure out along the way. And if you enjoy it, if you are consistent, you may just discover later on. It's something like me, that I focused on creative industries, and I just started focusing on LinkedIn later on. If
Absolutely.
that makes sense, yeah.
And since it's a really crowded market and the competition is fierce, there are so many podcasts out there, and whatever niche you're gonna pick, for sure there are a lot of other podcasts talking about the same exact thing. Do you think there is room for everyone, or do you think that is, I know that is a question, a really stupid question, because we're talking about starting and growing a podcast. But do you think that is still a good idea to start a podcast right now, since there is so much competition?
I think I would say, like, I don't want to say that everyone go and start a podcast. That's not the message that I would want to share. But I think although there are many podcasts, I think that the industry is still going to grow. And I can see by myself constantly like emerging new podcasts. Sometimes it's about the topics that are already there, but for some reason it catches my attention. Or there are even topics that sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I would never expect there is going to be a topic like this. Or sometimes I'm even curious. I'm like, oh wow, I cannot imagine there are people who actually listen to this, which, like, no offense to such a topic, but that it just makes me surprised. So I think yes, it's going to grow despite the number of people and the podcasts that are out there. I think there is still room, and I think it's going to be just bigger. And although there is such a big number of podcasts, then, as I mentioned before, look at how many actually make it past certain number of episodes. Because sometimes you see people branding themselves as I host top 1% podcasts in the world. But then look at how many podcasts there are. And the reason why you might be in 1% of top ones is because there are so many that don't get past episode, I don't know, let's say number 10. So
Makes sense.
yeah, that's what I wanted to share. So yes, I would say don't think that there are already too many and that you should limit yourself. Just find unique angle and go for it. Give it a try.
Yeah, it's good advice, because you may think this about anything, right? Why should I start a new online business in this specific market, since there is so much competition out there and there are so many online businesses in the same market? It doesn't make sense
Yeah,
to start. But instead, there is room for everyone. And as you said before, Thomas, I think that is really, it's one of the golden nuggets that you shared in this interview. I think that it's all about how you run your own podcast or how you
hmm
run your business. If you're really passionate about what you do, if you are consistent, if you offer great value with your podcast in this case, you just need to keep going until you're gonna receive back what you deliver, what you offer to your audience. It's all about sticking with it, being
Hmm.
consistent, believing in the journey, and just keep
Yeah.
going. Because, as you said, there are many people that are starting and then they're stopping just because they don't see any results. So I think that this
I
is a really important thing to remember.
I agree, and I think that's also like example of me because sometimes people reach out and ask me, how do you get such names on your podcast? But then people don't really see that there is a lot of work behind it because like when I speak, for example, with someone bigger from LinkedIn, it's not that I would start a podcast a few weeks ago and it would be like episode number, I don't know, 5 or something like that. I've done like so many episodes before when I used to speak like with people who even weren't on the LinkedIn because it was when I focused on creative industries. So I think sometimes what people don't see is all the work that I've done before, such as speaking with other people and along the way kind of trying to find my angle, my approach, and whether it's like structure of the podcast, me as a person, as an interviewer, the way I don't know, I brand myself and everything. So for some people it might seem that it's kind of like an overnight success or some kind of shortcut, but really there is like a long journey behind it. So never underestimate what is behind, and also I would say don't get scared if there is a long journey because there is a lot of learning that you benefit from later on, which is not just with podcast but even with other areas.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're not talking about overnight success here. And every interview that I have done, I think that I never shared something like expect immediate result or immediate success, because there is nothing like overnight success.
Hmm.
There is nothing like playing the lottery and winning out of a sudden. You need to work and you need to plan ahead and work for the long run, right? You are
Yeah,
creating something that will grow little by little, but you need to be consistent and you need to believe in it, otherwise you're never going to get results.
I'm glad to hear that because that's also one of the messages that I get from the people that I speak with. Because such a big names and like with large followings and successful people. But what you see is that they've been showing up consistently and they put the reps in, they've been, improving and doing everything. And it's never like I showed up and the next day I got like a large following and success. So it's really about showing up and improving along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about guests, for the people watching here, we have a lot of guests on this show. We interview at least 2 people per week, so there are a lot of interviews that we will have in the next weeks and in the next months. I just dropped the link for the newsletter for the Escape 9 to 5 show. So if you want to be notified every time we have a new interview, or just know who is the next person that we're going to interview in the next weeks and months, just sign up for the newsletter. And when you sign up for the newsletter, automatically you receive my ebook, How to Use Virtual Events to Get Clients. So you get 2 great things at the same time. And talking about guests, Thomas, how do you, since we mentioned this question, how do you find these great guests? How do you reach out to them?
Yeah, sometimes I get this question asked from people like, what is it that I'm looking for the guest? But it's since I'm on LinkedIn and I I just like meeting new people, networking. It's just really people that I'm interested in and curious about because I'm quite a curious person. I just like to talk to people, discover more, and keep learning and stuff like that. Sometimes it feels like that I've spoken with many people and there aren't anymore, but then I discover more and more, and it's like, oh my god, there are so many exciting people I'd love to talk to. So for me, it's really just people that I would be excited to talk to because I think what's the important point is that if it's someone that I'm not really interested in or I don't really want to know more about, which doesn't mean that the person is not interesting. It might not be just the topic that I'm not interested in. I think it will be reflected in the episode. And then if I'm someone who doesn't really seem interested in talking to that certain person, I think it gets reflected in the episode, and then I think the audience wouldn't enjoy it. So sometimes when people reach out, I understand that that might have a lot to talk about and they are maybe interesting or something. But for some reason, maybe it's not just for me. So then I think it doesn't make sense for me to invite them on because I wouldn't be probably able to lead engaging interview, which then I think the audience wouldn't enjoy it either. Because honestly, if I listen to the podcast and the guest the host wouldn't be interested in the guest, I think I wouldn't really enjoy it. So just coming back to the question, it's because I'm on LinkedIn. I know kind of the, let's say, LinkedIn scene or the people that are there, whether it's from engagement, mention, or somewhere, or this and that. I just know a lot of people, and really it's just like a building the relationship, and just you just send DM and invite them. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they say later, sometimes they are not interested. It's okay, but there are many people, and I think something that is important to mention is to try to build some kind of relationship. Because if I invite someone, I need to know something about them, and I want to feel like that I know them a bit, although of course we've never met. But I think it's good to at least keep showing up in their comments so that you've been built some kind of relationship in advance, because then once you start recording it feels like that you kind of know each other or that you are a friend. And I think it makes it easier for you because you feel more comfortable, such as you know the person. Also for the guests, because the guest can at least appreciate that you made some effort in advance. And I think it's also kind of polite, or how do I say the word, like a nice gesture. Because, for example, someone invited me to the podcast, or a few people, and honestly, I've never heard of the person. I was like, thank you, but I don't know who you are. And at least if that person showed some kind of effort, such as show up in my post and at least engage a bit, I would see, okay, that's actually someone who's interested. But then if they reach out without any prior engagement or anything, it might feel like that they just want, like, let's say, someone who helps them with the views. Because of course I can also reach to some big name, because I would be like, okay, I invite this big name on my podcast and I will get the big views. So that will be my advice. Try to build some kind of relationship, reach out via LinkedIn, at least in my scenario. And if it doesn't work, try later, because people are busy. Sometimes they forget, which is okay. And maybe just to mention, before I focused on LinkedIn, I also spoke with some people from YouTube. So if they weren't or on LinkedIn, I reached out just via email. If you search enough, you get some kind of contact information, whether it's email, I don't know, it can be Instagram or even on Twitter. So just keep looking. Don't be discouraged if the person doesn't reply or is not interested. You can always reach out later. And if the person declines, there are just other people who will be interested to speak with you.
One of the people that I really admire, and one of my mentors in my journey is John Lee Dumas. He's the host of Entrepreneurs on Fire, and I read his book. And if you guys you watching this, you never read his book, I totally recommend you to do it, because it's one of the best marketing books I ever read. And he decided to start a podcast where he had to interview one marketing expert per day, not per week, not per month, one per day. And it's crazy, right? It's crazy if you think about it. And everyone told him, look, you're not going to do it. You're not going to be able to do it because it's too much. You're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to get burnout. And you won't find all these people to interview, right? But he did it anyway. And now he has one of the biggest marketing podcasts out there. And it keeps interviewing one person per day. So it's absolutely doable. This just to highlight the fact that if you're afraid that you're not going to find other people or new people to interview, well, that's a lie. You're going to find always new people to interview. There are plenty of people you can have a conversation with. And remember always the fact that you don't have to find the huge experts to invite to your show. You can even invite other creators like you, just have a normal conversation. Definitely there are people that are listening and watching that are interested in what you have to say, right? Even if you're not the best expert in the field. And for the rest about what you said, Thomas, it's really important to understand the fact that do not give up.
Yeah,
Invite
yeah,
new
yeah.
people, ask. If they say no, there are new people. If they don't reply to you, reach out again, maybe through another in another with another method, with the email, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. There is always a way to find out. There is always a way to reach out to someone, but do
Yeah.
not give up. Do not give up and start small. Maybe at the beginning you interview other people like you, people who have the same kind of audience, the same level of audience, and then little by little you interview bigger and bigger experts. So as we said before, just start and improve along the way. This is a good teaching that you can always implement. I wanted to, I have other two areas that I want to talk about regarding podcasts. The first one is how to get more exposure, because you, Thomas, you do a great work repurposing your content. You repurpose your content on LinkedIn. You do great with that. You do a great job with that. So how can you, since it is a really competitive field,
Yeah.
the podcast field, how do you get visibility? What you can do at the beginning to get more visibility, or
Ye-
get more
mhm.
attention?
Firstly, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. But for me, it's again because I focus on LinkedIn. I focus primarily on LinkedIn, so I might have bigger exposure on LinkedIn. But then I post on other platforms as well. But understandably, there is only so much I can do. But coming back to repurposing, I think, oh my God, repurposing is like, whether it's with podcasts or other type of content, it's one of the best things that you can do. So coming back to the podcast, if you've got a podcast episode, I just a few days ago I shared this carousel. It was slightly clickbait like title on purpose, of course, but I think it was like 1 hour podcast episode and 1 month of content. Yes, people can say, "Oh, really? That's too much." But I honestly think if you've got a podcast episode that is packed with value, not like, "Oh, what did you have for breakfast?" or "What this and that," but if you actually share, I don't know, something helpful or valuable info, some kind of information, you can really cut reels and keep posting for the whole month. And it's not only about reels, because, for example, what I do is that, yes, I cut reels, but then also I do carousels. Specifically, I do lessons from the podcast. So, with coming back to 1 hour episode, you can do several reels. I don't know, like 1 minute reel, post it twice per week. Then you can do carousels, whether it's something similar to me doing about the lessons or something else. And you can do also text written posts, so that then you don't post each day the same type of content, but you can repurpose it in a way so that the content differs, such as a real text written post, carousel, I don't know, even image. So really, I think that there is such a big potential in the podcast. I know I'm biased, but I think it's true at the same time. So this is the way I do it. I don't post every day from my podcast episodes because I don't want to kind of show in people's feed one episode like all the time. So I post my podcast, and then I in between post other podcast related content. Then outside of LinkedIn, I post on other social media platforms such as on YouTube, where I post the whole podcast, and then Reels as well. And I think since I got the reels and I've got the content, it would be shame not to try to post it into other platforms as well. So then I post it on Instagram, TikTok, and I think that's it. Because I've got a content, I just post it there. It doesn't take as long. I don't spend really much time there. But one never knows. It hasn't happened to me yet that I would have like a viral reel on TikTok, but I keep showing up. Maybe one day it happens. Um, and it will be shame just not to benefit from it. As I said, I focus primarily on LinkedIn, and since there are people primarily from LinkedIn in this event, that's also where I spend the most time in. And what helps me is it's one of the things that I would recommend to start doing basically as early as possible to build in your community. Which, yes, it's time consuming, but I think it really makes a difference if you keep showing up, you keep engaging with the audience, and even listening to feedback. Because sometimes there are people, it's really nice, like a supportive environment if you find the right people, which I'm always grateful for. Sometimes they share great feedback, they are supportive, they see that you are there for them, and yeah, just build a community, take advantage of repurposing the content, and you don't have to post every day. Again, you just find what works for you. You can post like 3 times per week, but kind of to sum it up, there is big potential in podcasting, in like doing one episode and then repurposing the content. And yeah, that's probably it. I started talking too much. I don't know if I answered
No, no,
fully.
this is amazing. I'm just listening. I know that people are listening and taking notes because this is absolutely important to understand and learn. And I don't know if you do this, Thomas. Something that would really work for me, and it's crazy that many people don't do it, but something that really works for me to get more visibility when I repurpose my content is just to ask people to share it. It happens
That's
to
a
me
good point.
sometimes. Yeah, absolutely, and not many people do it. For example, you do an episode, you run an episode, you interview someone, you take some bits of this episode and you share it on, as you said, on TikTok or LinkedIn or
Mhm.
Instagram. And whenever you get a like or whenever you get a comment of someone saying, "Oh, that's great, I really like it," we never reach out to that person to say thank you very much for the kind words. Can you just share it to your audience because I'm trying to get more exposure and more visibility for
Mhm.
my show? These people, they will do it because they want to reciprocate. Just because they like your content, probably they're going to share it on their platforms.
Yeah,
And if we
that's a
do
good
this
point.
consistently, it worked really well.
I think I should focus on it more because I what I do is I of course I provide all the content and ask the guest, of course, that any kind of promotion or support is appreciated. So then if they share, whether it's carousel, the episode, or any reels, I greatly appreciate it. But to be honest, I've never really tried like to ask anyone in the comments. But if anyone is listening, then it's always appreciated. If anyone supports, whether it's me or Alessandro or someone else, it just makes us happier.
And sometimes it's just about asking. We don't ask because I don't know if we undermine what we do usually, or we think is people are too busy to do something for
Mm,
us. People want to help us if we help them. And if you help them consistently, as we said until now, if you create value consistently and you always give something valuable to your audience, they will want to help back. You just need to reach out and say, "Thank you very much for watching. I'm super happy that this was valuable and useful for you. Wouldn't mind to share it to your, I don't know, here on LinkedIn. Would you
yeah.
like to share it on Facebook?" And you will get astonished. You will be astonished how many times people would say, "Yes, absolutely, I'm gonna do it," without asking for anything back because they already got so much value from you. So that's another way, as we said, it's about networking, right?
I like it. And also, I think what's good to mention is that if you do it for someone, you never know when you might need something in advance. So that you do this favor, and then maybe later on you might need. Of course, you don't have to do it just for the sake of getting something back, but maybe later on you might need something, and you never know if that person might be helpful to you in exchange.
Absolutely, absolutely, 1000% agree with that. Always do things for other people without asking for anything back, and you
Mhm.
will get your favor returned sooner or later. So yes, we mentioned the word networking many times during this interview, and I really believe that it's about the people you surround yourself with. It's not about the method you use. It's not about if you run a podcast or you have a YouTube show. It's not about if you use LinkedIn or TikTok. It's about your community. It's about your circle of people that you have around. Because if you have the right people around you, you will
Mhm.
work as a team instead of working on your own and feel really lonely trying to run a business on your own. So it's about the people that you surround yourself with. So pick the people you want to surround yourself with, help them without asking for anything back, and you will see that at the right time, these people, they will help you back. And this happens all the time. It happens all the time. I wanted to ask you another thing, the other field that I wanted to focus on for the sake of time. I wanted to move straight there because probably there are people listening here and they want to know. I mean, they got it. They understood until now that you need to be consistent. You need to create content. You need to start your podcast with what you have right now. You don't have to be perfect. You can repurpose your content. You can network with the right people. But eventually, how do I monetize my podcast? What do you do to generate profit with it?
It's a, of course, good question and something that everyone wants to know. I think it's also, I would say, a disclaimer in the beginning that I think it's something. Don't start podcast for the sake of getting rich, because it's not that. Of course, it's possible, but it's not that easy. Because of course you need to have a reason um, why, for example, brands would work with you. There are many ways how to monetize the podcast, whether it's some kind of paid community such as Patreon. You can have affiliate links, you can have sponsorship, you can leverage your podcast to promote your business or something else. But in the beginning, if you don't have the audience and if like the brands don't really have a reason to work with you, it's going to be challenging. So my advice is, don't focus on it in the beginning. Of course, later on, like for example, me, I've been using my podcast, or not using, but I've been doing it because I enjoy it and because I've been building my brand on LinkedIn. So I haven't been focusing on that, because if I did, I would be discouraged quickly and I would probably not continue. I would stop like a long time ago. Um, so there are many ways how to do that. I think the easiest, it's like to start your own community, but then people actually need to join your community to pay for that. So you need to have something to offer in advance. You can have a sponsorship, such as with brands, ideally brands that make sense for your audience or that are somehow related to. But then you need to have something to offer, such as probably large audience, so that the brands want to work with you. There are affiliate. Again, you can share the affiliates, but then there need to be people to actually click on it and use it. So again, you need to have an audience. You can promote your business. I don't know, such as in the middle of the episode, run an advert or share the links for your business in any episode's description. And then there are other ways how to monetize it, such as you can do any kind of webinars or live events. You can do like the merchandise and stuff like that. So of course it's possible, but I think you need to be realistic. So don't get into the podcasting for the sake of getting rich. I'm not someone who does that for the money. I do it because I enjoyed it. I'm building my brand. I love speaking with people and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know if it answers the question. It's
It
it's
does.
possible to monetize it, but it's just not as easy as people think. Which
It's true.
doesn't mean that it's impossible at the same time.
No, no, no. It's true. It's true. I think that we shouldn't start with big ambitions at the beginning. You start small, and you start small as well with the goals that you have. And if you want to monetize your podcast, you need to understand the fact that you are again working for the long haul. You don't want to get profitable from the beginning. There are ways to generate some profit. I remember when I started my podcast a long time ago, it was a complete different field, a complete different market. But I started, as you said, with affiliate links.
Mhm.
And to become an affiliate for platforms, software, apps, you don't need to have an audience. You just need to sign up as an affiliate, and then you share your affiliate links in the like in your podcast or in your YouTube show. And it works. Like, you have a small audience, so you can't pretend to make so much to make many
Mhm.
sales, but at least you start little by little. And then when your audience grow, because eventually your audience will grow with time and with content that you will create, then you can leverage this audience to sign up sponsorships again with small brands at the beginning. Small
Yeah.
brands, maybe they won't pay you much to be in your podcast, but it goes with the flow. The bigger you become with your podcast, the more people you speak to, the bigger sponsorships you can get. So start with some reality check. Like you need to understand that at the beginning
Yeah,
you can't
exactly.
make so much, and you're working for the long haul and not for the overnight success. So it absolutely answer this question. I have a last question before we close this up. I wanted to ask you. I know that it's a tough question, but I left this for the end. Um, what are the three things that you would do if you have to start a podcast today? You know, from scratch. What are the first three things that you will do?
So the first one, find the tools, such as download or pay for any software that you like, and get the mic or your headphones. The second one, reach out to one person that you want to speak with and schedule the recording so that you then have to actually do it, because sometimes procrastinating and postpone is the worst thing. So just decide and go for it. And maybe the last thing, or not, I don't know if you get it already figured out, but you need to know what is it going to be about. And then the last thing would be post about it on LinkedIn. Because if you post about it on LinkedIn, it's official and you have to do it. Then it forces you to go with it. And I think sometimes the biggest obstacle is that we keep procrastinating and postponing it, and like, okay, I will do it next time. I don't feel it today. It's step out of the comfort zone. But if you make it public, then you just have to do it. So yeah, that's what I would do.
That's a great trick to hold yourself accountable. I love it. Since it's really difficult to hold ourselves accountable, it's always useful to make other people know what we want to do, so we have no choice. You know, we put our back to the wall, and now we have no other choice than do what we said we would do. So
And I
I
think
love it.
just a little addition, I think also if you make it public, you might get some amazing support, like from your community or friends or people, and be like, okay, it's a great step, go for it. And I think it actually might be a nice boost. So you may feel uncomfortable or scared, but if people start supporting you, it might actually help in the end. So don't underestimate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love it. That's a great advice. So, guys watching, we said this so far. If you like this, if you found it useful as I did, I'm sure that you took a lot of notes. So, if you have a lot of notes on your notepad, do one thing: share this episode. Once it's over, it's gonna stay on the platform. Just share it, okay? Share it with your audience. Make someone else look and watch this conversation and learn something. Remember that it's about helping other people, and if this helped you, help other people and start creating your circle of valuable people that you want to surround with. And remember, we have interviews every week, more than a single person. We interview 2 3 people per week here in the Escape 95 show. So sign up for the newsletter to be notified when we will have a new interview, and at the same time you will receive my ebook, How to Use Virtual Events to Get High Ticket Paying Client. As you can see, I'm basically doing what I teach. I do what I preach. I run live virtual events on a consistent basis, and this is what I teach. So if you want to learn from this ebook, you're going to get some good information there. And Thomas, thank you so much for this conversation. It was a gold mine of content, of valuable content. I loved it. If someone wants to know a little more about you and work with you, or I don't know, get deeper into what you do, or where can they find you?
Yes, just the simplest is LinkedIn. There are other links, other places, but if you text me on LinkedIn, and if it's not a sales pitch or something like that, you can share any memes with cats, I don't mind. But feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, and I will get back to you. And I want to just say a big thank you. And yes, people, please, it doesn't need to be this episode, but support Alessandro. I think he did a great job. I really enjoyed it. And as a podcaster myself, any support from people is appreciated. So just to say that um, to support Alessandro, it will be appreciated. I think he did amazing job. I really enjoyed it. I feel like it was so quick. I didn't even feel like an hour. I hope I wasn't rambling too much. Subscribe to his newsletter, follow him, support him, and a huge thank you from me, Alessandro. I really appreciate it and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for the kind words, Thomas. And hopefully, we're going to do another episode and we will have more time. As you said, like an hour is nothing to get into this topic. So maybe we can have another episode that we can get in depth into podcasts and everything else that we are passionate about. Again, Thomas, thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next episode we will do together.
It was a pleasure was mine. Thank you, and thank you everyone for attending. Hope you have a nice day.